Let me take you back to the year 2012. T-Mobile's in last place, essentially, in the wireless space. They're bleeding customers. They've got zero buzz. Their brand's the equivalent of beige paint. Do you know what their biggest issue was? They looked just like everybody else. And so what did they do about it? They tore up their playbook. Welcome to Confessions of a CX Executive. I'm JP. Now, I've spent a number of years running companies that had issues with churn, maybe a few issues with conversion and revenue, but we were able to turn all of that around. So I've seen what works and what doesn't. But if it's rooted in truth, you can try something unconventional to save your organization. We're not just talking about T-Mobile. We're going to talk about how a customer experience strategy translates into measurable results for the business, not just great feelings, but something that truly impacts the bottom line. So what made T-Mobile's strategy to focus on the customer so different in the telecom space? Well, it's quite simple. So what T-Mobile did is they did something that was unheard of. They actually told the truth. No, it's not saying that companies mislead you, but they told the truth about where they were as a business. So for example, they knew that customers hated 2-year contract, they hated the cost of switching providers, and more importantly, they hated being bounced around a number of times just to get service. So they made a decision, said we're just not going to do those things anymore. So what did they do? They got rid of the contracts. Yeah, that was crazy at that time. They also made a commitment to make it easier for customers to switch, and they used US-based agents to support those customers in the journey, things that were pretty radical at the time. So what made them stand out is they went from capturing customers to setting customers free. It was really a focus on how do we make customer experience a differentiator in our business. So that was one of the key elements that they did. A little unconventional, a little different, but it paid dividends in the long run. So how did their approach truly differentiate themselves from everyone else? It was quite simple. While most providers were playing defense, answering the call, keeping costs low, kind of holding the line with the customer experience, T-Mobile said, how do we make the customer experience a true differentiator in terms of how we do business? How can our contact centers be at the center of this evolution? So one of the things they did is they said, well, let's change this around. Not only put our contact center at the center of this, but let's have a team of experts who are dedicated to really driving that customer experience. And so while most companies hid behind their IVRs and a bunch of other types of technology to avoid the customer, T-Mobile leaned in to get closer to their customers. And as I mentioned, the team of experts was a big differentiator in that space. Now, what was the point of all that? Well, it was more than just feeling good. If we look at their results, they got churn below 1%, unheard of. And for 14 straight years, they were best in class as measured by JD Powers. So that isn't just something that says this, I feel good and we think this is a great idea. This is a strategy that yielded direct benefits to the bottom line of the business. And that's why we're talking about T-Mobile today, now isn't it? So what core lessons can businesses, including small ones, learn from T-Mobile's transformation? Well, I think there's one that's pretty obvious. Kill the dumb rules from your business. Kill those rules that stifle the ability to grow, the ability to service customers, and the ability for you to differentiate yourselves from others in your space. See, T-Mobile took that approach and said, we had to do something different. Now, you don't need to wait till you reach that point in your particular company, but continue to take a critical eye and look at those processes and procedures. Is your onboarding process too cumbersome? Is your pricing transparent? Or is the labyrinth of, I hope they don't really know what we charge? Is your service model truly delivering on the promise that customers ask for? Look at all of these different rules and determine, can we do better? And if you know the answer is yes, then simply do better. And I think that is the biggest takeaway from today's lesson. Cut the noise, make things transparent, and get to work on fixing the things that are fixable. See, customers don't just want to hear you talk about the experience. They want to feel it. And when they feel it, that differentiates you in the marketplace. And as I mentioned before, we have the receipts to back it up. So how do founders replicate the feeling of disruption without a big budget? Well, you don't need bright colors. You don't need a Super Bowl ad, but you do need the 3 C's. The first is clarity on what truly pisses customers off. Can't say it any plainer than that. But number 2, courage to admit that guess what? We might be part of the problem and what's driving a negative customer experience. And then 3, that third C is consistency. It's about getting after what needs to be done to improve that overall experience, which I've already demonstrated translates to the bottom line. So fix what's fixable, the easy things that are broken, and for goodness sakes, make it easy for people to do business with you. Make it easy for them to spend money. We remember that ad, the easy button. Yeah, I'm sure some of you remember that. Be the brand that people don't dread hitting the button that says contact us, because disruption isn't a flash, it's a consistent follow through. And that's what we're all after. And that's what our customers want. So why do customers remember brands that feel human and bold? I mean, really? Is that a question? It's quite simple. They're different. They feel different because everything else is boring. When a brand message sounds like it was written by a lawyer, or worse, AI, people can sense it. End of the day, we just want to do business that's easy. We want to get our needs met, and we want products that work. These aren't difficult things, but interestingly enough, they can be a challenge when applied to the real world. And the most important thing that T-Mobile did is said, listen, we're not perfect. However, we're going to stand by our product, and we're going to get it right, and we're going to do right by you. And that speaks volumes to a customer. See, I remember a story from my career. We were pouring over NPS data. We were thinking about how we can delight and wow the customers. Then the data came back. And here was the funny thing. It said customers who had a negative experience with us, but we addressed it and corrected it, actually had higher NPS scores than a customer who had no issue with it at all. So we're not saying that experiment on customers and give them negative experiences. What I'm saying is customers will give you grace if you stand behind your product and deliver on the promise that you say you're going to do and own it. And that speaks volumes. And that's something that T-Mobile did. Customers stuck around with T-Mobile because it felt different. It was more than just words. It was each interaction really conveyed that sense that they were getting the services that they paid for, but that there was someone at the end of the line who truly invested in their experiences. So that's not bold. That's not risky. That's sticky. So if you think customer experience, or CX for short, is just a bunch of buzzwords, a bunch of feel goods, let's look at the scoreboard from T-Mobile. Again, went from worst to first, growing at 5 million customers a year, now over 100 million customers, kept churn under 1%. Oh yeah, and there was that little thing called JD Power Awards that's recognized by a third party. Yeah, that stuff matters. But most importantly, they gained market share, market cap, while others in the industry were plateauing, dealing with the same headwinds, dealing with the same macroeconomic environments, and they still were able to grow their business and differentiate themselves from others around them. That's not a vibe, that's a story. And they brought the receipts and they brought the noise. So here's the rub. T-Mobile didn't win because they had the best signal. They won because they had the best signal to the customer. And that's what truly matters. They didn't wait for conditions to be perfect. What they did is they changed the conditions of their own environment in order to create a better experience for customers. And that paid off in spades. Quite simply, they listened, they made bold moves, and they got better on purpose. Again, customer experience is a team sport. It's a philosophy, not a department. If you're a founder or an ops leader and this story resonated with you today, drop me a line and let's see if we can help. The most important thing from today's discussion is simply this. We all have policies and procedures and industry rules that we feel bound by and may actually be hurting our business. But if we take a step back and think about a radical approach to improving the customer experience and committing to that in actual actions, and we too can start to have some of these great wow moments that not only impact how people feel, but more importantly, where they choose to spend their money, who they choose as their provider of choice. And I think each of us has that within our control. So once again, this has been Confessions of a CX Executive. I want you to like and subscribe to this channel where we talk about these sort of issues, and I look forward to speaking with you during the next drop.